Hey, y'all, finally. Hey, we are back. Welcome to Nightshift with Andrea up late. I'm joined, as always, by my trusty sidekick, Brian Sanders. Brian, how you doing?
Wonderful now. Absolutely incredible.
Absolutely wonderful now. So if you guys are just tuning in, hang in there for a second. Thanks for being super patient with us. We have a special guest tonight, and so we are really looking forward to talking to her. She's been so patient. If you're an audio listener, just forget all of this because it won't have mattered to you. But if you logged in to watch live, you had time to get yourself settled right on in. Tonight we are going to be discussing. We're revisiting a story that I've told before. This will be Brian's first time on this case, and I can't wait to bring it to you. This is a true crime podcast. If you're new here, we tend to be every Tuesday night, airing on the Andrea Up Late YouTube channel, anytime from 8 to midnight, really. You're welcome to join us in the chats. It does not cost a dime. You can just log in with your email that you were given at birth and sign in and come hang with us. So we will engage with the chat some. We usually try to keep most of the banter toward the end of the show and answer questions and those kinds of things. So without further ado, I'm going to go on and kind of give you a little brief intro. Tonight we're going to be discussing Nieko Lisi. Okay, that's Lisi. So Nikki was 18 years old in 2011, and this year would have been the last year that sadly his family or friends would be able to see him. But so many things happened in and around this case that surround his disappearance. Multiple states were involved. Multiple deaths took place around this time. But what does any of that have to do with Nico? And that's exactly what we're going to be talking about tonight. So Nightshift is happy to have Nico's mom, Monica, button back to the show. We're going to hear about her son in her own words and discuss any updates that have happened since the last time we brought you this case. So we will go on and get Monica on now. Okay. Hey, Monica.
Hey there.
Thank you again for being so patient with us while we were scrambling around. You got firsthand access to the backstage.
You're fine.
So listen, I know you're in New York. Are you anywhere near where all the snow has just been coming down?
So we're not near the city. We're about 4.5, 5 hours from the city. I'm like right on the Pennsylvania line.
Was that about all that got the snow? Was like kind of right downtown?
We at my house we had about 5-6 inches.
Okay. Well, we're in Wilmington, North Carolina, so that's like a lot.
Yeah.
So for us,
but we had more than that a couple weeks ago. So
okay,
and it's been really cold.
Okay. Well, we're over here like, man, it was 33 today. I can't.
Yeah.
Can't
it was 19 here.
Oof. I know. You see what I'm saying? We can't. We're not acclimated to that mess. All right. Yeah, they're saying that they got hammered in northern Massachusetts. Just kind of looking through the chats there. Okay, Monica. If you want, and this can just be, as detailed or as broad as you want, just tell us a little bit about Nico, about your family, about some of his hobbies, just kind of how he was as a kid growing up, those kinds of things.
So Nico was the middle child of my first marriage. I had 3 children with my first husband.
Mm-hmm.
We were divorced when the kids were little. They were very young. Then I remarried and 10 years later had another baby. So there's quite an age difference between the older 3 and my youngest. But growing up, the older kids, they were all in sports. I was a single mom for a lot of those years. All 3 of them, it wasn't just Nico. I mean, they were all very athletic, involved.
That's a busy life for you.
Very, very busy life. And it's funny because my daughter, my youngest daughter, she has 2 kids, and she just texted me the other day and she said, "Mom, I don't know how you did this." So it comes back around and they thank you later. But
okay, keep telling me that.
It was crazy. Someday they'll thank you, I promise. But we were really busy. Nico was my wild one, though. He just and I have to be careful because I get attacked sometimes. If I say, "Oh, he was a little devil," people are like, "What? Who would call
I
their
get
kid a
it.
devil?" But he was mischievous and just full of adventure, always
Hmm.
pushing limits. And um, he was the kid in gym class that, he was, again, very athletic. He was good at everything. All three of my older kids were, and he just was the kid that he wanted to have the underdog on his team in gym class. He looked out for kids that were getting picked on and bullied, and it just, there was a side of him that a lot of people didn't know, because he grew up into the tough guy.
Hmm.
Um, Defending, at first at home with his brother and sister. Then, I mean, he grew up. There's so much to tell. It's like I can get lost and I go
Sure,
back and
sure.
forth. Um, but he was a mischievous, adventurous kid who liked the outdoors. He loved his family. Um, when I had my fourth child, his little sister, he adored her. And one of the last things I remember about them was standing in my kitchen, and it was a week before Nico had disappeared. And I was videotaping them, and he was talking to her about her boots, and she was 2 years old, and he loved little kids. He was just, he was my, I don't know, the boy that could manipulate somebody, I guess, let's
Yeah,
say,
yeah,
and talk you into things, and be the sweet kid. But then as soon as he's out of your sight, you have to wonder, what is he up to?
yeah.
So
I'm a
that,
bit familiar with this
yeah,
entire characterization. I
yeah.
promise.
So it was always a guessing game. And as Nico got older, um, he was having he he struggled.
Hmm.
He fought with people over stupid things. It was just a lot. Every day I worried about him getting in trouble in school, and he struggled a lot with authority.
Hmm.
And that came from a fairly young age, really. Um, but I loved my son,
Of
and
course.
I know that my son loved me. He loved his siblings. They were very, very tight. And so, he as he was growing up, he was a big wrestler.
Hmm.
And from the time he was like 4 or 5 years old, um, and in high school he wrestled, and he had a neck injury, and he was told that he couldn't wrestle anymore. And that was kind of like a curve in,
Hmm.
it was more outlandish behavior, I guess. I'm not sure what word I really want for that.
Hmm.
But he acted out more when he couldn't wrestle. Um, he had some problems at school, and we were at summer break, and he wanted to go to my in-laws for the summer, and they live in Franklin, Tennessee. And the kids in the family at some point in time have all taken a turn and went with the in-laws for the summer, or stayed there because they got a job in Nashville, or they had a job in Franklin. And I'm talking about kids from New York.
Hmm.
So the family is down there, and everybody's kids kind of one by one went down there and had a turn. And so Nico wanted to go for the summer, and then that turned into he wanted to go to school there. And I was not a fan. um, I wanted Nico where I could keep an eye on Nico, because Nico didn't always make good decisions.
Hmm.
So I remember going down there a couple weeks before school started. I tried to get him to come back home with me. He's like, "Mom, go visit the school, and I've got a
Hmm.
summer job here, and I'm lifeguarding, and I'm doing well, and I've made new friends." And so he ended up ultimately staying in Franklin, and that was his 11th grade year in 2009, 2010. So in August, he started school there. I came back to New York. I was always on the phone with my sister-in-law, my brother-in-law. Um, I, you know, I kind of
Hmm.
knew what was going on there. But I do remember being at my in-laws, and I remember some kids showing up there, and the kids came in and they were all going to go to the movies in Nashville.
Mm-hmm.
And that was new to me. Like, my kids didn't, we don't live in a big city, and it wasn't, you come in and tell me you're going, you're going to ask permission, and maybe I'll let you go. But it was kind of like, I'm standing
Yeah.
there and he's, Mom, these are my new friends. And they left, and I looked at my sister-in-law and I said, don't let those kids come in your house.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh, they're good kids and they're from the neighborhood. And I'm like, I'm telling you, that's bad news right there. And it's like, I
Yeah.
just had this intuition, like, I don't like this. But he convinced me. My in-laws were like, he's going to be fine. So he went to 11th grade, started 11th grade there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I'm kind of going to maybe try to do a long story short, maybe. So he went to school in August. In February of 2010, he had called and he was home. He had flown home and never told anyone. I thought he was in school, and
Were you
he
at
was,
a barbecue, like a cookout?
no, I was at
Is that
work.
right? Oh.
I was at work, and I got a phone call that he was in Rochester. And so he came home and I enrolled him back in school here. Um, he went to school, finished the school year out. It was kind of quiet, not so, I don't know. And I could, if I could go back now, I would
Mm-hmm.
ask more questions. I was just happy that he came home.
Right.
I I knew that he had skipped school when he was in Franklin and he got in trouble. Because in Franklin you can't skip school without
Right. He was at Franklin
being,
High School, right?
yes, he
Yeah,
was.
we talked. That's where I went to school. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and that was another thing that was new. I mean, here you skip school, the police certainly don't hunt you down and you don't go to juvenile hall, but that's what happened
Right.
to him in Franklin. So that was his real first brush with the law. And so then he came back here, and that summer it was wild. I tried to keep track of him as best I could, and my sister would know where he was, or my brother would know where he was, or my mom would know where he was. And I mean, sure, I mean, 18-year-olds will go out and be with their friends, and they might tell you that they're at someone's house, but they might be out in the woods at a party. We all,
Right.
know how that goes. But um, as far as him getting into serious trouble or anything, I never knew of him getting in any trouble until we were at the fair, and that was in August. And Nico's phone rang, and we had just arrived there, and it was the Hornell police, and they wanted him to come in. They wanted to talk to him, and he announced that we have to leave, Mom. I have to go to the police station. And so we left, and I was not happy.
Mm-hmm.
And the police had told him on the phone that they needed to talk to him about a fight that he had been in. And he wasn't aware of any fight that he had been in, so he wasn't quite sure what they were talking about. And
Mm-hmm.
so he gets to the police station. I come home, and he's like, I'll go in by myself. And he took his wallet out of his pocket and handed me a ring and walked in the police department. And when I got home, he called me and he was crying. And he was being arrested for rape. And so then our world just turned upside down at that point.
Right.
Um, he denied the rape. He gathered information. Of course, he was arraigned. He was released on his own recognizances. He came home. He was digging out text messages from this girl calling his phone. Um, he had all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
He had an attorney that I did not pay for. Um,
Well, let
and
me actually. I'm going to interrupt you there because to set the stage as well, this girl, if I'm not mistaken, either led or portrayed herself to be an age that she was not. So for our listeners, she was 14, correct, Monica?
14 or 15.
or
Yes.
15. And when Nico and this girl first started seeing each other on again, off again, kind of, he was still a minor, correct?
Yeah. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So then as time goes on, this is kind of where this path led. So let this be a cautionary tale.
For
You know,
sure.
I mean,
And
in this, in the
it's
sense that when we say not to make light of anything, that's not what I'm doing here, but also these things happen, and they had been in, you know, an on again, off again thing. Like,
well, and that too, some people have been a little misled by that.
okay,
This is so Nico's father lived in Hornell.
okay,
And so that's like 20 minutes, 25 minutes from where we lived. And he would go to his dad's during the week or on weekends or whatever at that point because he was out of school. He had already graduated. He had gotten out of 11th grade. I'm sorry. He was going into his senior year. And so he was kind of running wild for the summer type of thing. And so this girl is friends with a bunch of his friends, and they're all running the streets together in Hornell. And then ultimately, there were 20 some boys that were in trouble over this girl.
that's
Um,
okay. Hmm.
so I don't know if like her father or mother or both found out she was having sex, didn't like it, went to the police. Then there's a police investigation into this girl and all of these people she's having sex with. And so I knew like four of the boys other than Nico that had been arrested.
Hmm.
And when it came out in the paper, they made it sound like it was some gang rape, and it
Yeah,
was not. It was
yeah,
individuals that had
yeah.
relations with this girl. And then I found out in the police report, the girl did a deposition, and the girl listed two dates in that deposition.
Okay.
And one date, Nico was 17 years old, which would have made him a minor.
Hmm.
And the other date was after his 18th birthday, which made him an adult. And the police department, however they decide to do that, took the latter of the two dates, which made him 18. So in New York State, that is a rape charge.
Yeah.
Um, and no, I don't condone that. I did not condone any of my kids having underage sex.
Right.
It's not something that I brought my kids up telling them that it was okay. In fact, years prior, I had sat in front of the high school with my two boys in the car, and I had to talk with them about that specific
Hmm.
realization that, listen to me, this is what can happen to you
Hmm.
because someone that I know, her son had gotten arrested for the same thing and went to prison.
And that's why I say cautionary tale. It's we tell it in
And
this house as well, and yeah.
I did. I sat with my kids in front of the Jasper Troopsburg High School and had that discussion with them. And then 3 years later, my son's in trouble for it.
Hmm.
And so he
So I'm
was
glad you. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
no, go ahead if you have a question.
Well, I was just going to say, I was going to lead up to September 30th and say, I'm glad you brought that up because that gets swirled around in the topic as, you know, the next few events go on. And I know that you guys fought that tooth and nail. What was the outcome of all that for you guys?
So there's, I mean, there was really no outcome for us because Nico had appeared in court and then disappeared before he was found guilty.
Okay.
Um, but I know that other boys that were there, they were, um, things were reduced, things were
Okay.
dropped because there wasn't um, enough evidence. And quite frankly, law enforcement person that I spoke with,
Hmm.
their words were that this girl portrayed herself, and the law enforcement officer that I spoke with thought that this girl was 21 years old when she answered her door when they went there to talk with her.
It
Um,
happened.
and then, in later years, I mean, of course, she was 14, 15 years old when this happened in 2011. But then she goes on to be 16, gets pregnant, has a baby. Nobody gets arrested over that.
Yeah. No, I
Um,
see.
there's just there was all of this stuff that was going on, but it was always Nieko Lisi. Nieko Lisi raped someone, and people kept saying, "Oh, well, he disappeared because he did this to this
Right.
girl," and that he had an attorney. He
Yeah.
knew what he was looking at.
Yeah.
He was taking the advice of his attorney,
Yeah.
and it wasn't like he was trying to blow off court because he had already been appearing. And that's public record. People can look it up.
Well, and to be fair, if he was blowing off court and just going out of state, he would have been found.
Right.
That's he wouldn't have been able or very unlikely able to at that age and kind of being impulsive like that and making a rash decision really go off the grid that well.
Right. And I mean, and again, he was 18. He was always on his phone. You know, social media for me was not a big thing. I was not a big social media person at all. I have never seen Nico's Facebook. That's how much of a social media person I was in 2011.
Right.
I never saw his Facebook. I
He
saw
still
his
doesn't have one.
I saw his MySpace after he disappeared. I didn't even know that he had one. Because I was not present on social media.
Yeah.
So, you know, the arrest happens, there's stuff in the paper, and then I don't know that he's disappeared. I'm at home on a Friday night. I had been working, and my brother had called me 9:30 p.m. Around there, and asked me if I had talked to Nico that day. And I said no. I said I didn't talk to him today. Why? And he said it was just strange, kind of weird. He was here today with some kid named Robbie.
And this was around
And
2:00 ish.
Between 2 and 2:30.
Okay.
And my brother lives about 20 minutes from where I lived at that time.
Okay.
And so I was like, Robbie, and I knew he was talking about Robbie Knight, but Nico and Robbie Knight weren't friends. Robbie Knight was friends with my oldest son, which I wasn't a fan of that myself, but
is it true that you didn't let your older son go to Robbie's house to hang out when they were spending more time together?
He did initially hang out at Robbie's house.
Okay.
And then I put a stop to that, but Robbie had never been in my house.
Got it.
But there was a kibosh put to that relationship as well. And I hadn't seen Robbie in at least a year or more. I didn't even know that he was around here at that time. And I just figured, well, must be he's back at his grandparents, because that's where Robbie lived when he was going to school in Jasper, was with his grandparents, because his family was originally from Romulus, Michigan. So my brother, again, he had called me September 30th, 2011, 9:30 at night. Have you seen Nico today? No, I hadn't. And my brother had just told me he just thought it was weird. They said they were going camping. And I'm just like, oh my God, camping. It's cold outside. And yeah, they said they were going to Buffalo. And I'm like, Buffalo? Why would they? Oh my God, this is awesome. And I'm thinking, what's he up to?
Right.
So I'm just, I can't do anything at this point. But I start to text him, and he's not answering.
So when they show up, I'm sorry to interrupt, but just for like kind of streamline it, when they showed up, your brother told you that they were, and this may have come later when you called him to ask specifically about a vehicle.
The next day.
Okay.
I never asked about a vehicle.
Oh, okay. Okay.
On that Friday night, I knew nothing about a vehicle. I didn't even ask.
Until a news article, right?
Correct.
Okay. So you've
ahead.
covered this so I'm going over, I'm making sure that we have covered all the little notes I've had down here, and you're just like, it's as though you read these and studied them ahead of time, because you're answering all of the questions. It was just wonderful. So you said that your brother said that they had plans to go camping in Buffalo, and to maybe like meet some girls or something. Is that right?
Yes.
Is that okay? Yes. So it's kind of like a maybe not. And then go ahead. So the next thing I have, and so if you want to speak on something that happens ahead of this, would be the very next day on the 1st, how Robbie shows up at his parents' house.
But I don't know that at this point.
Right.
So I went to work Saturday morning, and the first customers that come in are talking about a stolen truck and wanted to know if my sister and I had heard about the stolen truck in the area. And I'm like, I haven't heard anything. Have you heard anything? And no. I said, well, where'd you hear about that? And she said, it's in the paper, today's paper. And I said, do you have it? So she had her husband go out and get the paper, and he brought it into me, and I stood there and I started reading this article, and I was just ill. And I was like, oh my God, because Friday night I had tried to call Nico and he didn't answer his phone, and I text him. And again, this was Friday night after my brother
Mm-hmm.
called me, and I texted him and I said, I know you were here today. I see your sneakers are gone. What else did you take? And he said, clothes, duh. And that was the last I ever heard from him.
Did that
So
sound like
Saturday.
something Nico would have responded? And that kind of,
Oh
okay.
yeah. Yeah. So it was totally in his character to say
Yeah.
that. So I was just like, oh boy. But again, I go back to Saturday. I'm at work. I'm reading about this, and I'm just like, oh my God. And I went out back of my shop, and I called my brother and I said, what kind of vehicle were those boys in when they were at your house yesterday? And he started describing the truck that I was reading about in the paper. And so I had called my husband. I wanted to get a hold of Robbie's grandparents. Um, I had called the state police. Um, and I was told that I would have to call back on Monday because they didn't know what I was talking about. Um, and I don't know how many times I'd called the state police that day between Saturday and Sunday. Um, it was just I don't even know, a blur.
I can't imagine. And you guys, she didn't know yet
I
that Nico
didn't
was
know any
like
specifics.
missing. She just knew
No,
that it
I,
felt, her gut was telling her that it felt like, oh, these two could be like, he's not answering the phone and there's a stolen truck and it sounds like the one my brother said they were in. So,
yes,
when she goes to the police, keep this in mind to say, hey, this could be the case. It wasn't because she was saying, 6 months in, I haven't seen my son, and this sounds like it could work, right? It wasn't like that.
right,
So just so they're kind of following along in that sense. So you said that you tried to get a hold of Robbie's grandparents.
correct.
Were you able to get
And
them?
I did get a hold of his grandmother. Um, I asked about, where Robbie was. She said that she had dropped Robbie off a, a week prior at a cabin with Nico. And that would have been my parents' cabin. And Nico was staying at my mom's cabin on and off, as
Mm-hmm.
all the kids did.
Mm-hmm.
Um, he was over at my mom's, and I had seen him on Tuesday. I had talked to him on Thursday, and Friday was when he had went to my brother's. Um, and he was staying at my mom's cabin. He had had dinner with my mom that week. He had had dinner with us at my sister's house on Tuesday. That's when we were having the barbecue. That's where you got that from. But so Saturday, I'm talking to Robbie's grandmother, and I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, we've seen Nico. Like, Robbie hasn't been around. We haven't seen Robbie anywhere.
Right.
And she's like, well, I dropped him off at this cabin. Well, and she couldn't have driven to the cabin. She had to drive him and drop him off at a destination, and he had to walk to the cabin because nobody is driving to the cabin.
Okay.
So, and I asked her about a vehicle because my brother had said, well, Robbie said that it was his grandparents' truck. And so I said, does Robbie have your truck? And she said, we don't own a truck. So then I knew that those boys had to be involved with a stolen truck.
Right.
And again, I'm relaying that to the state police, and they're telling me there's not an investigator there. I need to call back on Monday. And I'm like, wait a minute. Like, I can't get a hold of my kid. He's not answering his phone. I'm freaking out. And I know something is wrong. And I watch far too much TV because I thought that things like that, you get
Would just happen
attention, and
immediately. Yeah.
yeah, the police are gonna show up and they're gonna take a statement from me, something, and that did not happen. And so I remember being at work on Monday, um, but I can't remember if it was Monday or Tuesday, that I did receive a call from the state police, and they asked me to go to the local PD to see if I could identify some still photos. And you have to remember that from Saturday till, eternity, our whole family was blowing up Nico's phone. We were texting him,
Right.
we were calling him, and this was nonstop. There was a lot of crying, there was a lot of screaming from me, my husband telling me that I needed to calm down. I didn't know anything for sure. And I mean, I was going out of my mind.
Yeah.
And so finally I get a call. They ask me to go to the police station to ID photos. I do that. Um, and while I was there, the chief of police of Addison Police Department, at the time, he was showing me how we could find on our Verizon account, um, the they were like graphs where you could
Okay.
see where calls had originated from and what the percentage was and things like that. And so we're pulling up the stuff and I'm printing it off in the police station. And so we can see where his phone had traveled. And there was a map. And I mean, you can follow the map, and I have
Yeah.
that. And so I'm telling the police this stuff, the state police as well. And I have the chief of police sitting right there with me.
Hmm.
And he's looking at this stuff. And nobody believed that Nico left the area. Nico was running, he was hiding out, they were going to find him. And so in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, well, they see these phone records and they can see where the phone traveled. By this time, I've already told them that Nico had lived in Franklin, Tennessee the year prior.
Hmm.
He knows people there. It's the only place he's ever lived other than here with us. So it just made sense to me that he would be there. So in my mind, I'm thinking the police are calling Franklin police. They're going to be looking for him in Franklin.
So the phone
Mm,
was showing already that that's
Yes.
where. Okay. Okay.
Yes.
And real quick, I'm going to back it up for 1 second. Because like you said earlier, at the time, if we're looking at what your knowledge was as the hours and days moved forward, you were not made aware yet. But what we've learned later, looking back, is that is that on the 1st of October, Robbie appears at his
Yes.
parents' house in Romulus, Michigan. And this would have been, is this a 7-ish hour drive from Addison, New York, or close?
I think that's what it was estimated at.
Okay, but so not close, I
I don't
guess,
know.
for our listeners, not,
But it's,
a significant enough drive.
yes.
And so he tells, and correct me if I'm wrong, because sometimes, like we've talked about, but things will get reported on once incorrectly, and then that's what takes. But so when Robbie's father comes home from work around 11 o'clock in the morning, Robbie's on the couch, and this was an unplanned visit. Like Monica was just saying, Robbie spent school time back in
New York.
New York. And so with his grandparents, where his grandparents lived. And so that's how their communication was going earlier. But at this point, he was, a few hours away at his father's house in Romulus, Michigan. Okay. So when we talk about the travel from like New York, Michigan, we're going to have an Ohio in there. And of course, she keeps talking about Franklin, Tennessee, where ultimately a lot of this is going to culminate. It gets tough. And Brian, I'll let you speak on it real quick, because when you're looking at a missing persons case, or anything that may, we realize it's transitioned into something else entirely. When you have 4 or 5, like multiple jurisdictions, not just multiple states, multiple cities, and it can be tough to get law enforcement to all work together at one time, I should say.
Yeah, it becomes just a nightmare if you're working a case where you're trying to collect evidence and communicate and get statements. And it sounds like, if I'm understanding everything, they were communicating, but more about just his location, or the fact that
not at first they weren't, right? Yeah, not at first.
Okay. So when you were talking about,
I was just making a broader point that
Yeah.
it can make things difficult at first if they were in fact trying to communicate with each other.
Yes.
Which at first that's not really what
Yeah.
happened.
Yeah.
But so evidently Robbie says to his father, what do we find out later, Monica, that Robbie told his father when his dad asked, like, essentially, like, why are you here? How'd you get here? What's going on?
So I can back up to when I was on the phone with the grandmother on Saturday, October 1st.
Okay.
at first it was about the truck, about her dropping Robbie off, blah blah blah. Later that afternoon, she called me and told me that Nico had dropped Robbie off at his dad's house in Romulus, Michigan. And I was like, well, give me the phone number there. And she wouldn't give me the phone number there. Um, no, I don't want you to call there because my son is really upset. He wasn't expecting Robbie to be there. When he got home from work this morning, he found Robbie there sleeping on the couch. And I said, well, where is Nico? And well, nobody saw Nico, but Nico robbed Robbie of his last $7 and stole his phone and held a gun to Robbie's head and stole Robbie's clothes. And I said, what do you, did you call the police? Like, what do you mean he held a gun to his head? And she's like, no, they don't want to call the police. No, they don't. And I'm thinking, oh, that's my kid.
Yeah.
Call the police.
Yeah.
If he held a gun to someone's head, call the police.
Yeah.
And so when she's telling me, no, we don't want to do that, and she doesn't want to give me the phone number, I'm just feeling there's more going on here. There's more to this. And I didn't know what that was because I couldn't call out there because I didn't know this man's phone number.
Right.
Ultimately, it was days later that, another thing I said, I need Robbie's phone number. If Nico stole Robbie's phone, Nico's not answering his phone. Maybe it's dead. Please give me that phone number. And I don't even remember if she gave it to me at this point or I had it, and I think it's still on the side of my refrigerator, actually. I got the phone number, Robbie's phone number, and I was saying I wanted to call Robbie's phone in case Nico's phone was dead. And I tried to call that phone, and they had already had it disconnected. And she told me, we're going to have it disconnected because Nico stole it. And I'm like, no, please don't have it disconnected. And I had got the number, called it, and she had already had it disconnected. So there's all of these
roadblocks
different things where I'm, I want to talk to Robbie and I'm being held up here. And when I talk to the police, and again, this is something that is bizarre because like I told you, it was the chief of police in Addison, New York that was showing me how to do this stuff on the Verizon account, right? It was days later that I relayed to the New York State Police that Robbie ended up in Michigan, in Romulus. They had no idea. They didn't know. I told them. I told them that his father lived there, his father's address. And by that time, I had the father's phone number because my husband, it was on Wednesday, which would have been the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, the 6th of October. My husband called down to the Knights, the grandparents, and he said, I want the phone number. And she gave my husband the phone number. The first he calls it, it doesn't work. So he calls her back. He said, that's not the phone number. That is a non-existent phone number. So she gives him another number. He calls. Robbie's dad answers the phone. Robbie's dad claims that the Michigan State Police have Robbie, that they're talking to Robbie. When they bring Robbie back home, we'll have Robbie call you. And my husband was like, well, we really need to talk to him. And he's like, well, I just want you to know my kids were home all weekend. My kids were right here all weekend. My kids were home with me. And it was like my husband.
You weren't asking for an alibi.
No. And I can remember distinctly my husband getting off the phone and he's like, that was so strange. And I'm like, what? And he's like, he was just so insistent on telling me that his kids were home. And I wasn't thinking in those terms at all. My husband thinks like that a lot. Like I'm the, oh my God, it's dreadful and it's got to be bad. And he's the thinker and he tries to put things in order before he opens up his mouth, where I jump off the cliff.
Same.
And so he's like, this isn't sounding right. Like, I don't understand. Well, and to me at that point in time, it meant nothing. It was like, oh, well, good. He said that Robbie was home. I don't,
Yeah.
Okay. But it's weird that they didn't see Nico. Why didn't they say Nico? And his dad didn't discuss that with my husband. My husband was just very adamant. We want to speak with Robbie. We want to talk to Robbie. Yep, I'll have him call you. Well, Robbie never calls. And so then it was Friday, or no, I guess it was Monday. It was the 10th. It was a Monday morning. And I got a phone call from my brother-in-law, who was a teacher here in New York,
Okay.
in Jasper. And he's like, Monica, are you home? Are you there alone? I'm like, no, Clint's here. He's like, hey, I've got something to tell you. And I'm like, what's going on? He's like, Monica, Robbie's dead. I'm like, what? And at this point in time, Robbie Knight is our only connection to Nico,
Right.
which Robbie Knight still hasn't called us. We're calling, nobody's calling us back, that type of thing. To my knowledge, I wasn't even sure at that time that the Michigan State Police had really went and picked him up, because New York was treating me like I was a criminal at that point in time.
So we have on the 8th, right? I'm not intending to interrupt you, but I'm looking at this timeline, so I want to make sure that I have this right. It looks like on maybe October 8th is when police actually do question Robbie in Michigan, but evidently his behavior was so erratic and bizarre that the investigators there talking to him in the questioning of all of this that's going on, because you guys got to think we've got a lot of things now. By now they've learned. We don't know what they've learned in the moment. We can look back now and understand there's a stolen car that they were potentially tied to. There's potentially a robbery at gunpoint, of Nico on Robbie. Maybe not, right? They don't know. A stolen phone, a stolen clothing. We've got now we can't find Nico. So there are so many pieces of this puzzle at this point. And so, like I said, this would have been, so Nico was officially reported missing on October 5th. 3 days later, on the 8th, Robbie was just kind of casually interviewed by Michigan police. And like I said, his behavior was bizarre. So they say, you know what, we actually need to probably do like a mental health check on him. So he's going to need to be hospitalized. So they go on and give him, go on and kind of commit him, at least temporarily, to kind of figure out what's going on with him. I don't believe, and let me know if you have an answer to this, and it really probably is not pertinent anyway, but he wasn't necessarily given a diagnosis at that time, right?
He had been diagnosed, yes. He was schizophrenia.
Okay. So he was having a break, basically. He was kind of having was Robbie, and I don't want to get too in the weeds on Robbie in this part of the timeline, because it really is kind of moot, but am I understanding correctly that he had been using drugs, or no?
Yes, he was a known drug user.
Right. And that also would make sense with the schizophrenia as well. And so at whatever point when he's being interviewed by them, he's likely having a break, I would say, if they're saying he needs to be hospitalized. Yes. And so like Monica just pointed out, on the 9th, he was released from the hospital. So that would be the next day. So he stayed like overnight. He goes home, Robbie, this is, from the hospital. And he was found dead at his parents' home. So was it actually an overdose? Is that right, Monica?
Yes, it was.
Do we believe that to be accidental or otherwise?
There was no mention in the police report of any suicide note or anything like that. But it was his own prescription medication that was found at the scene.
Okay. So yeah, so you guys, that would have been, if you were kind of looking at this in a streamline, that would be 10 days after Nico was last seen alive by anybody. Yes. So keep in mind when Monica said that, about when Robbie's dad came home in Romulus, Michigan, all the way from where all of this started in New York, when his dad comes home, sees Robbie there, we're supposed to believe, this is the story that's being told. Robbie was there. Dad was surprised to see him. Nico dumped him and ran in this stolen truck with Robbie's phone. So that's the information that we have in the moment. So Nico was never seen. We can't corroborate that Nico was ever actually seen in Michigan. Correct. So keep in mind, everyone, that we talk about these kinds of things a lot. When you have either a solo witness or you have like one person that's reporting on things, it's very easy to take that and try to spiral like a wagon wheel, all your theories or thoughts off of that one thing. And sometimes you have to think, wait, that one thing may not be accurate because that's the one person telling me that. So I've got to kind of remove that and think more abstractly about what could be going on. So I think to kind of get you back where you were, but actually, let me touch on this really quick. Speaking of social media earlier, wasn't it kind of around this time that something happened to Nico's Facebook?
Yes. So the police, they were saying, in fact, in a press conference, New York State Police said that the family shut Nico's Facebook down. And that was not true. My sister had tried to access at that point. Again, I am illiterate as far as the internet. And my sister had a Facebook. And so I believe it was my sister, or maybe it was my son. Somebody tried to get a hold of him on Facebook, and his Facebook was gone. And so the police are asking us, did you shut the Facebook down? No, we didn't shut the Facebook down. I'd never even seen the Facebook.
Well, wouldn't it stand to reason, if anything, you'd keep it open, hoping you could be able to message him or figure out something, right? Some detail.
I've always wanted to see what was on his Facebook. Was there messages there? What pictures were on his Facebook?
Right.
I never saw it. And so I'm thinking maybe there's something on his Facebook that would lead us to what is going on here. And it was just kind of like dismissed. And again, I watched too much SVU, and it's like,
Damn, sister.
I'm thinking, can't the police find out? Can't they open up his Facebook? Can't they get into it? And I was being told, don't try to get on that. Don't try to get in his accounts. And I'm thinking, why not? Like, I'm his mother. And then, of course, then I find out, I mean, it's just craziness. At some point, the police never asked for Nico's phone records. Never asked Verizon for Nico's phone records. And we're talking years into this. And my husband and I sat in the state police barracks in Bath, New York in 2015. And the police were saying, oh, well, Verizon only keeps those records so long, blah, 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 blah. My husband sat there, got on his phone. He said, yeah, they keep them for 7 years. And all this time, I thought that the police had his phone records because we could see them the day after he left the area. We could see them in Addison, New York on October 1st. Or I'm sorry, October 3rd. We could see them. I thought the police had that stuff. They did not. And I mean, I thought that they had mountains of his phone records. So I left
go ahead.
I left the police station that day in 2015. I called Verizon and I had to pay to get my son's phone records. And when I tell you that, this is what I paid for. Can you see this?
Yeah.
I had to pay for all of these phone records. And then
if you're just
police.
listening, she's got a pile of paper 1.5 inches, 2 inches thick of phone records.
And I paid for that. And then the New York State Police asked me if they could have copies of it.
It's not a good look, is it, Brian?
No.
So we talk, Monica, on this show a lot, and to new listeners, that whenever we discuss like a missing person's case, which initially speaking, we didn't necessarily have reason to think foul play. It wasn't that we look at patterns. It wasn't that Nico was home by 8 p.m. every night and you knew that by, like he didn't have this certain pattern of being home. So it wasn't crazy that he may have gone off with friends or, gosh, even traveled out of state. That's not crazy. That's okay. It's also okay for you to look for him and to ask questions. It gets a little funny once he turns 18 because then he's an adult, so they can kind of start doing that, and because Brian will talk about people who have gone missing as adults. I'm about to let you open up on that. And I say adults meaning older adults. You still can work a missing person's case, but also people have free will to go off on their own and not be found if they don't want to, right? So, but we always talk about you work it as though it was foul play. You work it as though there was a commission of a crime, because then if they're going to be found, they're going to be found. Like you still find them that way. But go ahead. What were you going to say?
Well, two things. runaway juvenile, like they're different categories. So if I use that term, I apologize, but there'll be certain categories or classifications. And if somebody is under 18 and they potentially just left on their own, packed a bag, the quote unquote runaway, a detective is usually, every department's different, but a detective is usually assigned, and it's their job to find that juvenile. Even though they willingly left the home and ran away, they're still out there. Anything bad can happen. 2, if the case starts like this and is classified as missing person, and a person who is an adult and willingly leaves, right? That may be some of that. But usually a department will actually explain that and just say, this doesn't meet the criteria for missing person, and this is why. But if it's not clear cut, and someone files a report and says, this is, in this case, this is my son, these are the facts. And
all the extenuating circumstances.
And he is missing. No one can locate him, and this is not normal type of thing. Then when a detective starts to look into the background of the missing person and that sort of thing, if they're assigned that case, and even if they think the person is not missing in the traditional sense, you treat it like you would, I hate using the term, but a fugitive, and then you find them, and then you can prove, hey, this isn't, a horrible thing that happened. This person, whatever,
chose to leave. You still find them.
But departments usually can explain which way they're going on that. I think that's the problem sometimes early on, is if a detective or a supervisor or whatever doesn't say, hey, this is the category, it doesn't meet this category, this will be the next step. We will or won't be doing anything. I think that the ambiguity sometimes.
Well, that combined, now we have it sadly paired with what we talked about at the beginning with multi-state, multi-jurisdictions. So you've got some that may look at it and be like, ooh, we need to look into it. These are kind of bizarre circumstances. And then you may have the one guy who's like, he's 18. He likes to run off. He ran off. It's fine. And I'm not going to take the time or money or effort to look into this next state. And so it's like, I can only imagine your frustration since then, but definitely at the early stages with this.
And to me, it was no secret that my kid made bad decisions. I'm the one calling the police, telling them that I think that my son has something to do with a stolen truck.
More incentive, right? More incentive. Yeah.
And so when I'm talking about he's missing, we can't get a hold of him, it was already decided he's a criminal. Well, they were going to go that route, just like what you're explaining. So they're going to go that route where the kid isn't. I'm just thinking, okay, good. Find him then. Lock him up. Lock him up, because I could sleep at night. That would be great.
And, for sure.
And again, I'm thinking, okay, this pushes the gas pedal on that because they think that he's running. So there's going to be bolos put out. They're going to be looking at cameras,
They may or may not have put a gun to somebody's head, right? At least in their knowledge at that time.
Right. And again, Robbie, it's like, I don't care if Robbie and Nico were best of friends. I don't care if they were worst of enemies.
Right.
If my best friend puts a gun to my head, I'm calling the police.
Yeah.
I'm calling the police.
Yeah, that's bizarre.
It's like, why his grandparents would not insist on that, or his father would not insist on that, or his mother would not insist on that is beyond me. And I mean, 14 years later, I can explain a little bit further. I'll throw it right in there. I don't think that Nico went to Tennessee alone. I think Robbie and possibly his brother were with Nico. And I think that when I go back to the phone call that my husband had with Robbie's father on that Wednesday night,
he was home all weekend. Yeah,
they're home all weekend. Home all weekend. And, and of course, I've gone off track here a little bit, and you can pull me back when you want. But in 2016, when I was in Tennessee, I had an investigator call me. I'm at a hotel, and they call me and ask me if I have pictures of Robbie Knight and his brother on my phone. And I said, yes. Can you send them to me? And I said, what do you need them for? I need them for an interview. And we're in Tennessee. And I'm thinking, okay, they're questioning someone that's in jail and trying to find out whether they can ID Robbie Knight and his brother. So must be the police think that too. But they never came out and said that to me in all those years, and all these years, they never said that.
Right.
So I still have that dangling over my head. Was Robbie with him? Was Robbie not with him? I don't know, because again, it's an open investigation. We can't give you all of that information, which,
Right.
I can wrap my head around that, but still, I mean, and at this point, Robbie is dead, his dad is dead, his brother is dead, and his grandparents are all dead. So there's no one to
Like,
talk
that's
to in the
done.
Knight
Yeah.
family anymore.
Yeah. Let me ask you, was Robbie's phone ever located?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay. So with that being said, obviously, guys, we have nothing to extract from Robbie's phone because we don't have Robbie's phone. So we talk about, let me see here and make sure that I'm staying on track with you. So what you were just talking about, so let's say we're going to move it along and I don't, a big thing that we needed to let everybody know. What happened on October 3rd? You received something in the mail. This would be 2 days after we think Nico went missing, right?
Correct. So I'm thinking he has stolen this truck. On the 3rd, I also find out they think that he's involved in a burglary locally. And then I come home from work and I open up the mailbox and there's a letter in there that's addressed to Nico. And so I open it up and it's his driver's license. And there was a note attached to it and it said, "Found this on the ground in front of the Hornell post office, thought you might need it." And I called the police and I said, "Oh my God, I've got his license. Someone mailed it here." And there was a return address. And they were like, "Okay." And that was it. And I
Okay.
held on to it for, until 2015.
Mhm.
Then the
We're
police
about to-
wanted it.
Yeah, and we're about to get to 2015. In fact, that's going to be our next talking point. Really quickly, that post office that you mentioned, from what I gather, it's just a few minutes from your home. So would that been a road? Would it make sense that, because I mean, when I look at it every time, if he like went missing, or the last time we know of that your family or anyone saw him or spoke to him, let's say on the 1st, then you get that in the mail on the 3rd. So we can only assume that, I mean, I guess at the least it could have been mailed on the 2nd, but I mean, I would go with at least the 1st, right? Like, I mean, did Nico tend to carry his license in a wallet, or did he carry it loose in his, like, a pocket?
In his wallet.
Okay. And so, okay. Interesting. So would he have, since it was close to your home, I guess it wouldn't be crazy that he would be on that street or right around that post office to have.
So that post office is like 25 minutes from my house, but it's within a block of his dad's house.
Okay. But again, he did usually keep his license in a wallet and not just like in pants. Okay. And so like there wasn't a wallet or anything like that, just the license came to you in that. Okay.
Correct.
Okay. So again, guys, you got to think like, and that could be just a sheer coincidental thing that literally somehow he did drop it or it fell out, like whatever. And somebody just, a bystander finds it and sends it in. It's weird though.
Very.
So yeah, let's move to 2015, and here we have a major discovery, and this is really where, when I said earlier that the case starts to really kind of culminate and big things start happening all the way down in Franklin, Tennessee. So Franklin's like middle Tennessee. It's a suburb of Nashville, just about half an hour south of Nashville, to give you a little bit of a geographic reference there. But everything that we started talking about, centered around New York. Okay. So we've gone Michigan. There was a blip of something in Ohio. We get down to Tennessee. So, if you want to go on and let us know, if you, just a reminder, guys, Robbie had initially said to Monica's brother, or Nico's uncle, that the truck they were in, of course, we find out later it, was stolen or reported stolen. So it makes sense that he would lie about whose truck it is, but he had said it was his granddad's truck. Granddad doesn't have a truck, right? So when we get back to that vehicle, which is kind of where all of this feels like it really started taking a strange turn, then all the way down in Tennessee, if I'm not mistaken, the New York police had come down to Tennessee. Is that right?
So I'm going to back you up.
Okay, go for it.
So I went to Tennessee before
Mhm.
any police ever went to Tennessee.
Right.
And I went there a few times before any police went there. And in March of 2012, I went to Flintlock Drive. And it was the young man that Nico was calling constantly on his phone on the way to Tennessee back in
30
2011.
something times, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So I went to his house because I had Nico's phone log, like
Mhm.
all of the people registered in his phone. And I called all of those people back in 2011 when he disappeared. I was concentrating on Tennessee numbers. I would leave messages if I didn't talk to people. And this one young man called me back, um, who we now know his name is Eduardo. And he called me, told me that Nico had been to his home, spent the night there. And so I go to Tennessee to his house. I talked to his dad and I said that I was coming down there, that I would like to speak with them. Would that be okay? They agreed. I arrived in Tennessee and went to the house and knocked and knocked and knocked, and no one answered and no one answered. And my brother-in-law was with me and he's like, no one's here. And I said, yes, there are. There's 8 cars in the driveway and there's people in that house and they knew I was coming and I'm not leaving.
Mm-hmm.
And so I go into the house. Um, I I speak with this gentleman, the father. Um, his son comes out, Eduardo, and I'm just dumbstruck. Like, this is not a kid that I could see Nico hanging around. This is not.
And how old was he at this time, would you say?
So when I'm looking at this kid that comes out, I think he's like 16,
Yeah.
15 or 16 years old. He's a little skinny kid and
Mhm.
he's got little round glasses on, and the kid that I talked to on the phone had this manly voice. Like, he was a grown up. Like, I thought when I'm talking to someone, have you ever been on the phone with someone and thought,
Mhm.
gosh, that person sounds like they're a big man, the way
Yeah,
they're
yeah, yeah.
breathing or the way they're talking. So when I talk to him on the phone, I think he's a 200-pound, 6-foot man. When I see him in person, he's shorter than I am and is like a little
Yeah,
skinny
he's small.
schoolboy. I'm like, oh my gosh, like, what is going on? And this kid hardly talks to me. His father's speaking to him in Spanish. I don't know Spanish. Um, and I'm just begging them to tell me, what was he doing here? How did he get here? What was said? What did he say? Where did he go? Who was he with? Was he alone? And they gave me 3 different stories at 3 different periods of time of how Nico arrived at their house. And what, the first story was that Eduardo said that he went to a bus stop 2 blocks away and picked him up. And then it was Nico was dropped off there. And then it was that Nico arrived on foot, and just all these
Mhm,
crazy
mhm.
things. So, and I don't believe anything these people are telling me. And so ultimately, I mean, I end up leaving there, and feeling just sick because I just feel like they know something. They know
Mhm,
something. So again, this is in 2012.
mhm.
I found out when I was in that house that Eduardo had sent my son a money order. And I said, I want to see a copy of it. Do you have receipts for it? Do you have the carbon copy? He had all of it. And he gave it to me. And he wired my son $90 to Ohio
To Ohio.
on
Mhm.
October 1st of 2011. So with that in hand, I leave there and I go to a UPS store with a fax machine and I fax that to New York State Police.
Wait, really quickly. I'm sorry. When you get wired money, and
Mhm.
forgive me if I'm not like I've not done it. I mean, so because I'm thinking about Nico not having his
You need an
license with
ID.
him.
You need an
Yeah.
ID.
Okay. Okay.
Unless, and I found this out just recently.
Okay.
So if you don't have an ID, like if I'm going to wire you money, I can give you a secret password and you can go to Walmart and tell them who you are and who's sending you the money, and you can give
Okay.
them the secret password.
Okay.
I
Okay.
did not
Good to
know
know.
this back then. I
Gotcha.
just knew that you had to have an ID because that's how I always believed it happened. You had to have an ID.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry. It just
So,
popped in my head like that. Okay.
so I send that information to the New York State Police. And in my mind, we're going to take the little Western Union and we're going to call Western Union and we're going to read off the ID number and we're going to find out where it was picked up,
Mhm.
what the town is, what the store is. Then we're going to talk to people at that store. That didn't happen. So, and I never knew that didn't happen. I thought it happened. I just thought they weren't
Okay.
telling me what's happening. So again, that was 2012. So then in 2015, we're going to go back to 2015. Now
Mhm.
we're moving along. And I find out that the Western Union was never checked up on. They did, however, in 2015, a new team of investigators had the case,
Okay.
and they did find out where it was picked up, and that little store had the same 6 employees, and they did have CCTV back then, but of course, it's now 2015. They don't have that footage anymore. So in 2015, a 6-pack was put together and sent to the store. And I don't know, Michigan police were there or whatever. And no one in that store could ID or pick Nico out of a 6-pack of pictures.
Okay.
So then we moved to April of 2016. And I was on vacation. And I was having a nervous breakdown. And I had called
So this is
it-
5 years later, everyone, as you're listening.
I had called the I guess they're called the captain or whatever in Canandaigua, New York, of the New York State Police, and had a discussion. And it was so weird because in the first couple years of the investigation, I always wanted to talk to someone in a higher position. Like
Okay.
I just felt like you're not doing enough for me. So I need to talk to your boss. I want to
Okay.
talk to his boss. I want to go and I was told by an investigator that they didn't give that phone number out. And again, I'm not used to googling stuff. So
Yeah.
I didn't do that. And
Yeah.
I wish I could go back now, right? So I'm 2016, I get the number to the captain or whatever the title was, and I had a discussion and I said that, this is just crazy. And I've listened to all of this stuff all these years. I've been treated like I'm a criminal, and I sat in Bath, New York, and I have the police don't even have his phone records. Like, and I have their boss come out and apologize to me, and we're sorry, Monica. We're gonna get this right. We're gonna get this right. And I stood there in that hallway, and I said, if I find out my son is dead, I will own you. I will sue you, and I will own you. And I walked out of that station, and I was crying, and I'm telling this to this captain, and I would never sue anybody. Like I'm just not that way. Like money would never bring my son back. Okay, it was just something that flew out of my mouth. And I remember getting in the car with my husband, and I apologized to him. I'm like, I'm sorry I said that. You know that I wouldn't do that. And he just looked at me and he goes, I wouldn't blame you if you did.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point in time, now this captain is hearing my story, and I'm like, I've had enough. Like,
Yeah.
nobody has went to Tennessee except me. Like,
Yeah.
I was in a police station in 2012, and New York State Police is telling them, we don't really need your help. If we need your help, we'll call you. I was sitting at a desk with a detective in Franklin, Tennessee, and that man said, if your son is here, we will find him. If your son is here, we will find him. We just need to talk to New York. They need to do a press release with us. We need to get the information. I sat right there, and he hung up the phone, and he just kind of shook his head. He goes, well, I guess they don't want our help. I'm like, what? And I went out in the
Yeah.
vestibule of the police station, and I called the investigator that was handling Nico's case. And I called and I said, what are you doing? And there were some swear words in there. I'm like, what is happening right now? He said that they will help. Well, we don't need their help, but we will send a press release. I have talked to senior investigator so and so, and we will send a press release down there, and so that they can put it on the news. New York never called Franklin and asked for their help. And then in May of 2016, a new investigator shows up at my house, and he is from the violent crimes unit. And I'm like, violent crimes unit? My son's run from the law, remember? Like, that's what I've listened to all these years. He's run from the
Mm-hmm.
law. So why is there a guy from the
Yeah,
victims?
yeah.
I don't get that. So I asked him, don't you like handle homicides and stuff? And he goes, yeah, generally, but I'm, I specialize in phones. I'm going to follow the phone. I said, well, where were you in 2011? Because I
Yeah,
was
I
following
was gonna
phone in
say it's been a
2011.
minute.
And so I started getting out my notebooks, and I started getting out my phone records and, phone records. And when I tell you notebooks, I've never done this before, and I'm going to show you. I've got some stuff here.
Yeah.
I've got some stuff here. I've got notebooks.
Bless you.
Bless you, bless you. Notebooks and notebooks and notebooks of all of this stuff that I kept track of for
You
years,
found. Mm-hmm.
that I gave the police. I took my totes over to the police station. I let them go through my stuff, and they, ultimately gave it back to me. But I have totes of stuff. And in one of my very first notebooks, and one of the very first people that I talked to, and I told the investigator, I saw a phone log that he had, the new guy that's at my house in May of 2016.
Okay.
And I said, oh my gosh, I know that. I know that number. He said, how do you know that number? I said, because I have it written in a notebook. And it's on this page, on this side of my notebook. And I'll give you a flash of it. There it is.
Okay.
And that was from 2011. And that name on that piece of paper is the boy that lived in the house where the truck was found in July of 2016.
Okay, so guys, she just said where the truck was found. So Monica, this is where, or listeners, this is where it gets wild. I have pictures I can put up, but I'm going to let you start if you want to go on and tell a little bit about how that happened and what that has turned into.
So in 2016, a couple investigators from New York, the new one that showed up at my house, he was investigator, I don't even remember number, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And he and another investigator went to Franklin. They traveled on Monday. They
In a
had,
vastly different part of town, if I recollect, from Flintlock. I know Flintlock, and I know where the truck is found, right? So we're looking at
so
just to
Flintlock
describe.
is, and people get that confused. The truck was not found in
In
Franklin. It was
Flintlock.
found in Nashville. Right. It
Right.
was
So
not
like in
found.
Brentwood, wasn't it like Brentwood area? Well, okay. The area
Nashville,
that the truck was found was it not a nicer
Sylvan Park.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. So Flintlock is a vastly different area than where the truck was found, is what I'm trying to say. So we're looking at like kind of set in two different stages, basically, from the person Eduardo, just remember that name for later, and then where this truck is found as well. So we're going to see how all this comes together. But
so in, again, July 2016, the investigators travel Monday. Tuesday, they meet at the police station. They have a list of names that I provided to them, phone numbers, addresses, parents' names, siblings, because I had gotten all of that out of the Franklin High School directory over the years. So they go with all of that in hand. They are looking for people who they can question, whatnot. They questioned a few people on Tuesday. They have a press conference on Wednesday. And then on Thursday that week, they find the truck. The stolen truck out of New York that they believe that Nieko Lisi and Robbie Knight were in. But of course, Robbie Knight gets lost in this. It was, and I was just
Right.
reading one of my FOIA requests that I did, reading a statement from one of the investigators. The truck, the pickup truck that Nieko Lisi stole, they never had him on video. They didn't know that Nieko Lisi stole it. Robbie Knight was with him too. So did Robbie Knight steal it? Go pick up Nieko Lisi? We don't know that.
right.
but it was always Nieko Lisi, Nieko Lisi, Nieko Lisi. So, and there's a 50-50 chance it was Nieko Lisi. But that's what, it was the truck that Nico stole, was found. They called me that evening, told me that they had located the vehicle. In their press conference the day before, they had told, the press was asking, how long are you in town for? And they said, we don't know.
Mm-hmm.
We could be here for a while. They found that truck on a Thursday afternoon, and they packed their stuff. New York packed their stuff and came home on Friday. And nobody was questioned. Nobody was arrested. I found out that Nashville Metro, because it was their jurisdiction,
Mm-hmm.
they wanted to take the truck and they wanted to destroy the truck. Thank God there was a detective from Franklin there with the New York State Police in Nashville at the scene. And they said, no, we'll take the truck back to Franklin and house the truck. Because that was the only piece of evidence in a missing persons case that they were dealing with.
So I know our listeners, and they're going to say the first question is who owned that house?
Okay. So, I did not know for a very long time. The police would never tell me, who owned that house. They wouldn't even tell me the address of where the house was or where the truck was found. And it took a year and a half for me to find out what the address was. And so then I knew, and I just kept my mouth shut because I didn't want somebody coming and burning my house down or shooting me in the head.
Yeah, I feel like we kept it kind of quiet the last time we even talked, right?
Yeah. So then we need to fast forward.
Well, I want to tell the people what the condition of the truck was when it was found,
Okay.
because we're picturing the truck, this 2004 GMC. And let me show you what the truck looked like when it was found in like the garage. Was the garage a separate like outbuilding from the home? Is that right?
The garage, yes, it was. But
Okay.
the pictures of the truck that you have, they were taken in the
In the
TBI
police
garage.
Okay, yeah. So, well, that's why it's all clean and bright in there.
Yes.
But I have a picture, and I don't know if I don't have it here, guys. All of these pictures, as always, you're gonna see. If you audio stream, you're gonna see them on the Instagram page. Okay, so you can go to Andrea Played Instagram and see these photos. So she makes a great point. This is in the TBI lab, so the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation. Ultimately wound up. We're going to talk about them becoming lead on this eventually, but that's where it's located here. But at the time, it was in a home in a really nice neighborhood, in an outbuilding garage, a separate garage. And when we say that the truck, people say that it was scrapped or it was deconstructed or it was it had been taken down, right? You're thinking some tires are missing or maybe some fenders. Let me show you what the truck looked like. So here's the truck. And this is how it's found all these years later. I think we have another angle here. So we're talking, there's not literally anything that would house rubber, fabric. I mean, we're down to metal. And when I say metal, I mean, it doesn't even have a windshield. It's as taken apart as it can be without just the remaining one piece of metal that seems to all connect. Like I don't know how else to describe it if you're just listening.
Those front pillars that hold the windshield, it looks like from here have been cut.
Even those have been gone. Yeah. So as taken down or deconstructed. So if you ever look into this case and you want to read about Nico and you want to learn more and try to, see what you can know, or if you know anything, or if you know any of these cities or people, this thing is not, when you read scrapped, that's not the word for what this is. Yeah. And it had been burned as well. Is that right, Monica? No. Okay.
Not to my knowledge.
So the first time we talked, I don't remember talking about that or seeing that. At some point in between these two times, I have read it, but that does not mean obviously.
There was a reporter. True. There was a reporter in Nashville that misspoke, and the reason why that I know why it happened, because she was covering a story 2 days before about a burned vehicle.
Oh, there you go. Okay. See, that's as easy as it happens, guys.
So she misspoke, and it wasn't it was a reporter out of Nashville that did a segment, and she did say the truck was burned, and it was not.
Gotcha. Okay, and then that kind of took. So that was was the truck. And I want you to. Okay, so you were about to, I think, get into something else, but and if you don't want to touch on this right now and you want to come to it later, we can. But to your knowledge, or do you want to tell anybody, was any kind of forensic? I mean, to the best of anybody's ability, what can you do with that, right? But was there any forensic processing done on the truck?
I know that there were some swabs taken that day from the Franklin detective that had a swab or two in the trunk of his car or something. I don't know. And the owner of the truck, I learned from him.
Okay.
He told me, I had went to his house. I knew him from school. He didn't know my kids. My kids didn't know him.
Remember, guys, the truck was taken from New York. So
right, and it was within walking distance of where my shop was, where I worked, and that's where I grew up and went to school. And so I knew him. I didn't know who he was either. The truck had been stolen for over, I don't know, 2 years until I ever found out what his name was. And I was like, oh my God, I know him. So it took me a couple more years to go and talk to him. That was very hard for me. And I went to his house, and he was out on his porch. And I had carried a letter in my purse for years that I'd written him. And I just didn't want him to be mad at me for looking for my son. And I understood that he lost a vehicle. And if I would have had the money, I would have went and bought him a new car. And I was just, certainly not in a position to do that. But anyway, I approached him, and he came down off his porch and he hugged me. And we talked a little bit, and he had told me that the police had called him and told him that they were closing the case on his truck. And he said, I felt really bad for you when they had called and they had asked about the blood in the back of the truck. And I said, what are you talking about? And he said, well, they called me and asked me if I'd ever hauled a dead animal in the back of that truck. And the police had never told me that. And with good reason. And he certainly thought that I knew. I mean, he wasn't trying to upset me. He thought that I knew. And of course, when asked and approached, I'm still kind of thrown on a back burner over that. I did hear through the grapevine at one point that it was mixed DNA. So many stories I've heard coming from law enforcement. And it's like, so I don't know who to believe.
Okay.
You know what I mean? It's like I've heard different stories from different people within law enforcement. So I don't know what's true and what's not. And I mean, I was told one thing by a New York State investigator, and I went to the TBI investigator and I said, did you know that this happened? And so the TBI guy calls New York, and New York's like, I don't remember ever saying that to her. So this has been my life for 14 years.
Yeah.
It's like, you can't make this stuff up. You can't make it up. And anyway, we're at a point where a couple years ago, the young man that had lived on Flintlock, who was Eduardo, he got in trouble. And I found out about it because I am nosy. And
let me really fast. I want to get to that. In 2022, there was, I say, a hiccup. It was something that caused, it felt like wheels had turned because a hunter had found remains, and you get a phone call saying, we want to let you know we're looking into this. Human remains have been found by a hunter. And that was in, I believe, November of 22.
December 2nd.
And then December 2nd, you found out.
That
Okay.
that was the finalization. Yeah, you're right. It was the week before. It was
Okay.
the week of like the week of Thanksgiving. But I believe it was December 2nd when they
It
called
was
me and
just,
told
yep.
me that it was not Nico. But yes, they called me and I said, "Do you have?" And again, this is in 2022.
Yeah.
Okay. I said, "Do you have his dental records? Did New York send you his dental records?"
Yeah.
Nope. I said, "Well, I have them. I'm going home and I'll send them to you. Can you use them if I send them to you via email?" Yep. And that's how they crossed
Excluded.
Nico off the list.
Yeah. Yeah. So guys, I'm saying that even though that didn't turn out to be, a definitive thing, it just brings to light again in all these years, all of these hiccups, all of this time, one more thing, like what people who are in a horrible situation like this have to, there may be some times of not much going on other than your own thoughts in your head about it all, every day, all day. So I'm not discounting that, but in terms of like what feels like movement on the case or what feels like new developments, and then or years with that stuff. So then when you get a call out of the blue and it had been 11 years,
Well, I had gotten calls prior to that, but this one was
they
to
seem
the
to
point
suspect it, right?
they really the TBI agent, he was very hopeful
Okay.
that my family was going to have an answer.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't, that kind of sounded weird, but
No, I
after
understand it
14
though.
years, after 14 years, people need to understand, I do not think that my son is alive. I have not thought that my son is alive. Um, I, it's a horrible, horrible place to be as a parent. Um, but I know that if my son was alive, he would be here and I would not be doing this interview right now.
Yeah.
Um, and I found out again in 2017, New York State Police. It's in my FOIA that I got. I want to send you copies of this stuff so you can see it.
Yeah.
Uh, they they believe that Nieko Lisi died by the means of homicide shortly after arriving in Tennessee.
Yeah, please send that.
And that was never made public back in 2017. And it's like I've I've just lived with and rolling with the punches and getting the phone calls and seeing
Yeah.
about bodies being found. But December, of 22 was different because the investigator himself, the agent himself, he was hoping that he could give us an answer. And I was I was devastated. And no parent wants to find out that their child is deceased, but I believe that my child is deceased and I want to
So
bury
you want
him.
to find him?
I
Yes.
want to bring him home. And I've had people say to me, "Well, you want his bones?" Yes.
Of course.
Yes, I do. And people don't understand that. Um and I've had people say, "Well, his soul's not there." Yeah, no kidding. I know that. But you know what? Those bones started growing inside my body. That is my child. And I want whatever I can have of him back so that I can lay him to rest where he should be. Um, and I think, I don't know, I am in the mindset. I know I do a lot of complaining about what I think is, shoddy police work. Um, but it doesn't happen like it does on TV. I do know that. There have been some very good investigators in our lives. And one of them is our TBI agent right
That
now.
Nathan Niece?
Yes, Nathan Neese. And he is, he has been a godsend for me. Um, he keeps my head above water and he lets me know, you know what, Monica, we can't change the past. All we can do is move forward. We need to move forward. Um,
He
and in
seems like a
20,
go-getter, and
he's
he seems very confident in moving
he
forward.
is, and he's a compassionate person, and I know that a lot of times, and I don't know, maybe maybe you can tell me if I'm right or not. when you become a police officer and you go through some training, it's almost like sometimes you have to desensitize yourself. And I get that from knowing the police that I've dealt with. Um, it, and I don't know, some of them are alcoholics. Some of them use drugs because they can't deal with what
Mhm.
they have dealt with all these years over and over and over, and things that
Well,
they've
I will
seen.
tell you what he has said when he since retirement. He doesn't drink. He doesn't. But what he has said is the like when we first started doing the show, there was times before we started doing the show, right after retirement, that I'd say, hey, you want to take a look at this, see what you think, and it would be a photo, like some sort of a crime scene photo, and then between like nurse, cop, like we've seen some things, right, and so. But at first he'd be like, I don't want to. Now he can objectively look at things and put puzzle pieces together. But he said, the worst part of the heart, I'm talking for you, but like the hardest part about it was families receiving news that they didn't want to receive. Like that was, he said, I'm just glad to not have to deliver that anymore.
Yeah.
And so I will say I know that they're not all compassionate, right? Like it's like any other job. Like you're not going to have, like, I'm a nurse. You're going to find nurses that aren't so great, like it's
Right.
whatever. He is incredibly compassionate, but I certainly have dealt with some that are certainly not,
Right.
and that can go either way. But Nathan, watching him again, guys, that's so TBI, the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation, has taken the lead on Nico's case, and Nathan Neese is the lead there. So he's really working with their family, and like she said, like, I'm glad that that's how you feel working with him as well, because like watching him and watching his interviews made me feel hopeful for you guys. And so I'm glad that he's bringing that to the table. And like you said, the compassion piece as well.
And that's just something in any missing person case. And I know I go off the rails and people are like, well, what else happened? What else happened? But I have to stress, after being in this for 14 years, it's like, I remember being at Missing Children's Day in Albany, and there were some people there from the Missing Persons New York Clearinghouse, and I'm listening to this guy give his presentation, and he asked if there's any questions, and of course I raised my hand, and I said, "Yeah, how many people work on your team?" And at the time it was like 9, 10, 11 in there somewhere between 9 and 11. And they go around to the state police barracks and to academies, and they give training and things on missing persons. And they instruct officers and, all of that kind of stuff. And I said, so you have, 9 to 11 people. How many have missing kids? Well, none. Well, how can you teach it then if you don't have a missing child? How do you instruct others how to behave with families if you don't know yourself because you read a book? Like that's not how that works. And I know that, and I use the word profiled, and New York State Police would probably disagree with me heavily. I know my kid was in trouble, but just because he was in trouble does not mean that he purposely disappeared.
Right.
It doesn't mean that he drove away to get killed.
Or that he's not worth looking for, and we talk about that always when it comes to, even like, I think the bigger time that's talked about is when you look at often, I understand this is a generalization, but statistics work. Often we have like long haul truck drivers, it's a serial killer. I used to make, it's a terrible joke, but I used to make a joke of like, I'm going to make a t-shirt that's got like the truck driver. It's like, it's not always the truck driver. Right. But like, and then like sex workers, like prostitutes, a lot often are these victims. And I think that now I do think there's a much better job of reaching out and looking into and solving and looking at every case equally. There was a time when it was kind of like, well, it's a high risk lifestyle, right? Like, so like everybody they're around is living a high risk lifestyle. This is going to be very difficult. So there was a time, again, that's a blanket statement, but where I think it was much more difficult to think that things would move forward or would be looked at quite the same. And so not the same thing with Nico, but what you're saying is that in terms of like he was kicking it. He was getting into stuff and maybe getting into some mischief, and then maybe even some heavier mischief later on, or maybe not. We don't really know exactly what happened those last few days. We don't know any of that. So it could be that it was looked at like he's doing his own thing. Like he's 18 and we're not going to take the time and resources for it. And could it absolutely be the case?
And it was, and I mean, and I'm not the mom that's sitting here saying, not my kid. I was throwing my kid under the bus. So go look for him.
Yeah.
Make a phone call,
Right.
I mean, or lie to me, because I was lied to. So lie to me some more and make me think you're doing something.
Yeah.
But it's like when I look at a FOIA that I have, and there was one investigator that had Nico's case for 1 year. And that man had 4 entries for a year's worth of work. And I understand Nico wasn't his only case, but I was told by other investigators, he's not going to do much because he knows that he's moving. He's going to be going to Rochester, so he's not going to be doing much. So it's like, how do you think that made me feel as a mom? This was in charge of my son's missing person case. But and I want to go back. There's just so much that keeps popping in my head. So we talk about the missing person report, right? I wanted to have him. I said he's a missing person. I want to file a report. No, he's not a missing person. Well, when Robbie died, then all of a sudden I get a phone call that we should probably do a missing persons report. But it's not really a missing persons report. It's called a report of incident verification. And it's handwritten. It was taken over the phone. Nobody even came to my house and sat down with me. I'm crying because my son, I haven't talked to him in 10 days and he's not answering his phone. And now the guy that he was with is dead. But a report was taken on 10/11/11, October 11th, 2011. And it says, date of incident, 10/1/11, missing son, Nieko Lisi, with his birthday. And then it is signed. And do you want me to tell you what the date is on that? December 1st of 2011. I wanted him reported when I talked to the police, like October 1st,
5th,
2nd,
right,
3rd,
right.
But it wasn't done. And when Robbie died, then maybe. But then it still wasn't signed until December. Like, what kind of police work is that?
Oh God.
It's like, what happened there? And okay, maybe they have their reasons, but nobody ever sat down and said, you know what, Monica, this is how this has to go. This is how we file stuff, or this is how we investigate. It was never done.
That's what I was going to say. That I think that's the frustrating part, is that often in the very beginning of something, a detective, or probably with something like that, a sergeant should say, hey, these are the categories. This doesn't fit this category. But that also doesn't say that if you have compelling information at that time, that a department can't say, okay, we're basically going to look into this. This person is lead. Give them a little while to look into it. Because it may be, meaning that something, it sounds like a lot of that maybe wasn't done early on to explain, hey, this is not falling in the category of missing person. I don't know, but that's what it sounds like, right?
It sounds like they didn't do shit.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Instead of just saying, hey, this isn't a missing person case by our protocol.
Oh, like giving her a reason.
Like, hey, this is our protocol. But it also, but that doesn't mean a department can't say, explain to me everything, and then they can figure it out from there. Because yes, technically it may not be a missing person, but there may be enough pieces.
I think what she's trying to say is either do it or explain to me why you're not.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. Like, it sounds like nobody was really.
No, and I was like, I was treated so horribly by some of the investigators. And I can remember I received this picture at work. This girl contacted me via Facebook Messenger, and sent me this picture and said, "Hey, I came across this on social media. I can't remember if it was Instagram or whatever it was." And she said, "It resembles your son a lot." And I open up this picture and I'm like, "Oh my God." And I'm thinking, he's been gone so long, maybe I wouldn't recognize him. And this is a strong possibility, right? I call the police station and I'm like, "Oh my God, I just got this picture, blah, 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 blah." We know, we've seen it. I'm like, "No, no, no. I just got this message. Da, 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 da. I'm coming right now." I get in my car, I leave work. I get in my car, I drive 25 minutes to the police station. I'm ringing the bell, I'm crying. This could be my son. He might be alive.
Yeah.
And this investigator comes out and she says, "We've already seen it. It's not Nico." And I'm thinking to myself, "How have you seen it? I have my phone in my hand. How have you seen this? How do you know?"
Right. Right.
And I said, "I need to show this to you." And she's like, "You don't need to show it to us. We've already seen it. And we've already run it through facial recognition." And I know she was lying to me because the nearest place that did that is like an hour and a half away
Not
from
there.
us.
Yeah.
So I'm like, "What is going on here?" And she doesn't want to let me in the door. She doesn't want me to go in there. I said, "I'm coming in." And I grab the door. And it's like, why could you not take 5 minutes and sit down with me? I'm crying. I'm hysterical. This could possibly be my kid.
Yeah.
And then I get it and I'm showing it to her and she just dismisses me.
Mhm.
And then when I'm leaving the barracks and I'm crying hysterically, she's calling me names, derogatory names that other investigators came back and told me about. And it's like,
Oh my gosh, I
Are
don't even
you-
understand. Like,
Yeah.
and why are they? I mean, I hate to say it this way, but why is she doing it? Obviously, why are they telling you that? Like, all of it is just so messed up.
Thank you. Yeah. So some training needs to go on somewhere. And it's
Yeah.
not just in missing persons, it's in how you treat people, period.
Well, and that's another thing, and I hate to keep harping on that, but like you're bringing up these great points that we talk about often when it comes to cases. Usually, I let Brian talk more on these shows, but usually, we talk often about, and an example I always give is he'll talk that, sometimes, sadly, I mean, suicide does happen. And sometimes it happens when a family does not expect it or can't imagine that someone would do that. Right. And let's say it's their young adult son or something like that. And then they come in and they say, "There's no way. This had to be murder. This had to be somebody. Right. Like he would have never, she would have never."
Right.
And he'll say like, and it's tough because you have to explain, well, it was, and this is why, and they may still beat down your door. And he said, and then it gets real tough because sometimes they want to see the photos. Sometimes they want to prove to themselves and to prove to you that it was something other that couldn't have been suicide. Right. And then he's like, and then you have to sit down and explain so they can go home and sleep at night eventually, like,
Right.
and have an answer and understand that what we're saying is true, and this is why. And so everything you're saying, a door should never be shut in your face. This should never be a problem to take a minute. She could have even said, hypothetically, right? Like, it sounds like she just wasn't giving you the time of day. But let's say hypothetically, the girl that sent it to you sent it to them and was like, "Hey, I'm cracking the case on Nieko Lisi." And so she could have said, "Oh, an anonymous whoever sent this to us. We didn't even reach out to you because we checked it out first and realized it was not a lead to go anywhere. It wasn't him." Then you're like, "Oh, okay,
Right.
thank you." And you go home.
And that's very simple, right?
Yeah.
Very simple.
Yeah. Well,
And
let's catch. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I don't know. I'm a thorn in people's sides because I wanted answers and that is
As
just
you
too
should
bad.
be.
And
As you
that's
should
just
be. Well, I think that we should throw everyone for a little bit of a loop in the sense that so this upcoming like September, October, this is 2026. So this will be a 15-year mark. There haven't been, at least publicly recognized, much of anything in the way of suspects and things. Today, when I sent you the text with the FOIA, I hope you understood I wasn't being cold about that. I was thinking,
no.
Yes, the amount. So I tried to FOIA things for Nico a week or two ago. And you guys, if you're familiar, so with the Freedom of Information Act, if you request records, it depends. Every state and every jurisdiction is different. I won't tell you how I am able to procure documents from Tennessee. So like it just depends on how you get things is different, and how much information, and how deliberate or specifically you articulate what you need. Sometimes you have to literally, I've just sent a third one out for a different case and received new information. I'm like, oh my gosh, like I've basically asked for all of this. Is like I had to say it to you. I had to just spell it out, this whole new thing. So for Nico, had we FOIA'd, like had we known about Nico's case, let's say 10 years ago, had we FOIA'd that case, we potentially could have gotten, there wouldn't have been a lot of information. But if it's a missing persons case, it's not a criminal investigation, so you can get a lot of information back. If there is a criminal investigation going on, you don't get anything back. And that makes sense, right? We can make that make sense because the public, it's not anyone's business. Joe Schmo doesn't need, because it's not always mom requesting these records, right? It could be just whoever down the street, and not everything that's going to compromise a case. So you cannot divulge that information. And so a great example would be the Grant Solomon case. We're still FOIA and stuff for that, still getting it, which means they're not investigating it. And so when I tried to get things for Nico, I think even, I think I'll ask you in a moment the year that it switched over. But when I FOIA'd, I got a denial of request, and it just got in my email box. I guess I got it yesterday. It's been slammed at work, but I saw it today in my email. I was denied at both passes. And that's good, because I was denied because it's considered a pending investigation. And so that means that it's actively being worked. And so, I don't care. I don't care to get a roadblock if I know that they're working on the case, right? So that's kind of what's going on. And so the most current update, and I want you to speak on this, would be that we told you that the TBI is lead on the case. And so a year ago, in February of 2025, almost a year ago to the day, it was like, I think the 17th or something, in Franklin, Tennessee, a man named Eduardo Gonzalez, I can't say it, Aguirre. This would be the man who lived, who was the scrawny little boy that Monica referenced on Flintlock Drive in Franklin, Tennessee, that she went and spoke to in 2012, right? I believe, who gave her, who sent the money order to Nico in Ohio on October 1st, right? So this guy, who at the time was like a kid, teenager, just last year in Franklin, he, at this point, was a real estate agent in his late 20s, I believe, and was arrested on a rape he was sentenced last year after being convicted of a rape in 2022 that happened to be, it doesn't matter. I'm not going to get into the details of the rape, but so he was arrested, convicted, charged with sentenced to 8 years in prison, I believe, just last February.
Correct.
They have come out since then to say, Nathan Neese, the TBI agent in charge here of Nico's case, that this guy, Eduardo, has long been, what's he been, Monica? I'm going to let you, I feel like you are in this one.
He has been a person of interest in Nico's case
For a long time, evidently.
And as far as, I believe, as far as Nathan Neese believes, as far as the TBI is concerned, since the day that Nico disappeared in 2011.
Mm-hmm. That's what it sounds like. And so there's so much to that. Like I started, and quite frankly, just the time hasn't been there just in the past few days. But I will continue to be doing this, because trying to find, and I'm sure you're already on that a long time ago, but like looking into any parallels there. But do you know of any parallels between Eduardo and then the location of where the truck was found? Those people?
Yeah, they were friends.
Okay.
And the one thing that we haven't hit on is in 2016, when I found out that they had located the truck stripped, torn up, I was also notified that 2 people that they were looking at to interview were deceased. So
one of them that lived, it was the son that lived at that home, right?
Yes.
And then okay.
Yeah. So, and then in 2024, at the trial, Eduardo had a trial for the rape charge. and I went to that trial.
Oh, okay.
And the TBI was there. Nathan Neese was there, and he
Mhm.
testified on the first day of trial, but this was not in front of the jury.
They couldn't hear it, could they?
Correct.
Mhm.
And they were trying to rule whether they were going to let that information in or not at the trial.
About Eduardo being, sorry,
about-
listeners, him being a person of interest in Nico's case.
Well, what they wanted to do was present his statements to the police concerning the Nieko Lisi case.
Okay.
Because he had given a statement back in 2011 to a school resource officer. And then in 2016 had given a statement to New York State Police on that Tuesday before they found the truck. And those statements that he gave were entirely different.
Mhm.
There is a Facebook group, Tennessee and Missing. And
I saw
she
they just
actually,
shared.
did you see that new article that she just put out?
On the 3rd, I
Fantastic
think, or
article.
something of this month, maybe, or something.
Yeah, it was the beginning of February, but excellent article. She put in, there's names of the people that were disclosed in court, and those were people that Eduardo named in statements, and those statements were read aloud in court, in front of the judge, there was only 5 of us in the gallery.
Mhm.
And unfortunately, they did rule against them submitting those, but it became public record because the
Mhm.
media was there.
Yep.
And I mean, it's a court record anyway, but there was a reporter in the courtroom as well, and it was something to sit there. I was sitting there with my daughter, and the case was not about my family. It was about a
Right.
victim, and she was victimized by him. But it was, for me, I knew that this might be the only time that my son is ever acknowledged in that state. And I knew that as his mother, I knew that kid was the last one that saw my kid. And I wanted to look at him, and I wanted him to know that all these years I still haven't forgotten who he is. And so we're sitting there in the courtroom, and there's testimony for a couple hours about Nico's case. And Eduardo's defense attorney even, he called me out in the courtroom, pointed at me, said my name. What is she doing here? This case isn't about Nico. And it's like, I hope you don't have kids, sir. Like, are you kidding me right now? And I mean, I know that's his job. He's a defense attorney, but how low can one human go?
Yeah.
And
Well, he's a defense attorney.
it's like one punch after another. And even though the statements didn't get to be used in front of the jury,
Mhm.
I felt this huge satisfaction because Eduardo's parents sat there, Eduardo was there, and they
Mhm.
know that I meant it years ago when I said it. I'm not going anywhere.
And
I'm still
gosh, it
here.
had been what, 14 years late, 2012, and it was 2024 was trial, right? So
Yes.
yeah, so 12 years later.
And I also went to the sentencing. And it's just, to show you how small the world is. Like, I'm at the sentencing hearing, and the courtroom is packed. Now, at the trial, there was no one except his
Yeah.
parents. And so we go to sentencing in February 14th.
Yeah, here he had a lot of
Oh.
friends and family there.
Oh, packed.
Yeah.
And the question was asked, where was all of your support during your trial?
Mhm.
But they never told anyone that he got arrested. And
So
his wife
I
admitted
heard that
that.
only, yes, and I heard that his wife was not, that she'd come to the trial some, but she was not at the trial.
She couldn't because she testified. So she
Mhm.
never heard any of the evidence.
Yeah.
She was a witness. And she was
And
the
still
last
stood by
witness.
him, right? Like she
Yeah,
still is,
she
as
is.
far as I know.
I
Yeah.
have no idea. I have no idea if she is now, but she supported him through the
She
trial.
was until sentencing. Yeah.
Yeah, she was with him at sentencing.
Mhm.
So I don't know how that has progressed, but I've always wondered, like, does she know about my son? Does she know that her husband has been accused of this? Because she wasn't in the courtroom. She didn't hear any of that.
Yeah.
And it's like, I ask Nathan these questions, and when he doesn't answer me, I just know, don't ask again, Monica. It's like,
Well, that's good because
there's
you know that he's telling you what he can tell you. So if he doesn't, that's okay.
right. And
Yeah.
when I get a non-response, I know that, okay, maybe I've stepped over a line, and he's not going to answer me. He's just not going to tell me. And I respect that. Because he's always respected me. And, he said it. He said, I will be Nico's voice. And, that's what I've wanted from day one, for someone to listen, for someone to care, and just say he's worth looking for,
Keep talking, but I'm gonna put pictures up. I just don't want to catch you unaware. Okay,
yeah,
of Nico, just pictures of Nico and stuff. But keep talking, of course.
it's just a hard spot to be in. And I'm thankful for Nathan Neese and his dedication to Nico's case.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thankful that he got on that stand and he talked about my son. Um, and even though it didn't go, our way,
Mm-hmm.
and stuff wasn't used in front of the jury, it was still, you know what, I'm still here, and
Yeah.
I know you know something, and I just
Yeah.
want to know what you know.
Yeah. This is him, by the way. This is Eduardo. There. Enough time on him. Yeah.
And
When
it's
did?
like, I wanted to tell you what was amazing was when we were at the sentencing hearing, there was a woman there,
Mm-hmm.
and they called his name. And I mean, the place is packed. They've got people standing out in the hallway. And I'm sitting there and I hear them call this name, and I'm like, how do I know that name? I don't know people here. How do I know that name? And the woman walks up, and she's going to be a witness for him, a character witness for him.
Oh,
And
okay.
she gets up there and she starts talking, and I'm like, "Oh my gosh." And I get on Nico's Facebook page. I have a Facebook page called Search for Nico Lisi.
Yeah.
This woman was a member of his group. And she's in there standing up in front of a courtroom telling what a great guy he is. Yeah. And she's his neighbor.
Oh.
And so that's
Did
like
you have
another.
time with her outside of that?
I said hi.
Okay. Okay. I'm a member of that group too. We'll chat later. Wow.
Yeah. So those are things that I deal with that people have no idea. The, you know, this is not a fun place to be in. I've said it over and over and over. It's a hard place to be. Um, but after 14 years, I've grown some pretty thick skin.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm glad that names are out there now, and that I don't have to be so secretive.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, there's the people that own the house in Nashville. I contacted that boy's mom back in 2019. I sent her a Facebook message, and I'm begging her to help me. I'm like, we're two mothers, we're mourning our children, but you can go to your son's grave and visit his grave. You know where he is.
Mm-hmm.
Please help me. She went to the police. She filed a police report against me for intimidation. And it's like, if anybody ought to be intimidated, it ought to be me.
Yeah.
You people have
Yeah.
withheld information. Y'all have attorneys. My son is dead. Your son might have had something to do with that, or maybe he didn't. Maybe he was an innocent bystander, or maybe this thing is bigger than just my son, because there's two people in Tennessee dead that were associated with Eduardo as well. So,
Yeah.
so is this all intertwined?
Yeah. Right. Right. Um. Yeah. To clarify for the listeners, and there's no point right now in getting in the weeds of it, but where the truck was located, like we were talking about in this neighborhood in Nashville, it sounds like there was a family that lived there. Ultimately, parents pass away or whatever, and then it was, I think, daughter inherits the home or something like that. Is that right? But the son that lived there is who also passed away. That was in this group with Eduardo and everyone else. I think Monica's frozen for a second, so we'll keep talking. But we do. have someone in the chats asking, and when she comes back, I will ask her about this, but asking about the money order and, what exactly that $90 could have been for. Do we have any information about that?
Yeah, which was a great question.
Mhm.
And I didn't want to interrupt earlier because I kind of thought maybe that comes out. But you start talking about cooking off $90 for something very specific, but it never, like, as far as we know, like, hey.
Well, I mean, to be honest, it could have been for gas, right? And we'll touch base with her, and she may know more about this, obviously, when she comes back. Oh wait, I think she's getting back. There she is. I'll let her set it up. There she is.
Sorry.
No, you're good. I thought you were just looking at me really intensely, and then I realized you weren't blinking and you're in prison. so we're talking about there was a comment in the chats that was a question about the $90, the wired money that Nico received in Ohio. And so I was about to say, we're going to ask you if you have more information. It could be something as simple as gas money for his way back down.
That's what Eduardo stated.
Okay.
Giving him money for gas.
Okay. And who knows? But I mean, that's not a crazy thought. I think since he's coming, from New York, we still don't know, guys. Remember, because we still have all the Michigan piece, and then the Robbie piece, and then the what. And so that's why Monica is saying that potentially Robbie could have been in that vehicle with him to Tennessee. But oh, girl. I'm so thankful you were able to come on and share all of this and have a time to talk about Nico. I will say, and it may be flippant to you, I do feel, when I say positive about moving forward, I think I feel positive in a way about it, in a different way than when we talked a few years ago, because it does seem different. Then we were saying, letters like E, and so it blows my mind now. Like it literally just dawned on me. So when I learned about Eduardo, and then totally, like, I don't know why I totally skipped this piece in my brain, but the last time we talked, and you're like, we're only going to say E, and we talked about some events that took place in Franklin around that time. And some of it was speculation or maybe a little hearsay. We don't really fully know. But it all had to do with E. And here we have Eduardo, who's now been publicly listed as essentially candidate number one as bad guy since very, very early on. So, and they can say that now because he's behind bars. So there's time to, he's not going anywhere. So, I do think, yeah.
And I don't know, there's still people though. There's people out there that have information that
for sure. I have no doubt about that.
I just don't understand. I don't like the two boys, the Schrader boy and the Jacob, and I don't know how to say his last name the right way, Kerwin. Those were people that Eduardo named in a statement. Now, those parents knew that their sons were friends of Eduardo. And they know that my son is missing and that Eduardo's name has been there. Like, I just don't understand how, as a parent, that you can't want to reach out and help another parent. Like, the Schraders knew the truck was on their property. Like, and you get an attorney and you don't want to talk to me and you don't want to talk to the police. And so what does that mean?
Yeah.
I don't know. I wasn't brought up that way. Yeah. And I know the other issue for me for years was too, that I just could not understand if I had a stolen truck tied to a missing person, that I would be in jail.
You wouldn't just have a stolen truck tied to a missing person. Like, if I'm them, they don't have a stolen truck tied to a missing person. They have a truck that has very intentionally been altered in such a way as to
and kept hidden.
That's it. You're exactly right, because it could have gone to scrap. It could have gone anywhere else. And Brian will talk about it often, but people either keep, let's say, the weapon, the whatever in commission of the crime, keep that item. There are two groups of people. those who keep things hidden. So like you find, like they do a search warrant, they find stuff in someone's house and they find the murder weapon or the whatever, right? Or those that toss it in a river, those that get as far away from it as possible. And they have two different thought processes on why they do what they do. These people very clearly, this, I can't blame or, whatever the daughter, let's say, that lived in the home once the older people passed away and now she inherits this house, like whatever, who knows what even story maybe she knows, or maybe she got an entirely different story, but why do they still have it? Like it is bizarre. I mean, it's more than bizarre. There's something obviously,
well, I'll tell you my theory on it. My theory is they were working on getting rid of that truck. They were working on it.
when that boy died?
And then he died. He died.
Mm-hmm.
So the two boys in Tennessee died before it was found in 2016. So there was no one to question. And Eduardo claimed that he didn't have anything to do with that Nico gave that truck to James. Well, Eduardo was the common denominator.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
but then that begs the question, and I mean, I won't keep you here all night just speculating, and you've done it for almost 15 years now, but like that begs the question, okay, if it was there because like the kid in that home eventually, like he died, he overdosed, right? Okay.
yes.
So he died. Then does that mean that do his parents know why the vehicle was there? Because like eventually it wasn't like his beloved vehicle. So like why, like you're not holding on to it because you just can't let go of his belongings, like why would they hold on to it?
Mm-hmm.
Or do they know?
If they didn't know.
Well, but but I'm saying if they didn't think anything bad had happened or didn't know what he was into, they would just get rid of it. Like that's
right?
At this point some old thing that he had that really didn't mean anything to him. It was new, brand new to him. It wasn't like something he cherished, right? So like you would just eventually get rid of that. Like
I don't know, if it was my house and my kid was living in there and there was a truck in that garage, I'd be questioning my kid, where'd the truck come from?
That's what I'm saying. And then if he dies 2 days later, you're not hanging on to it for sentimental reasons because he wasn't tied to it. So you're getting rid of it unless you have a reason to keep it. Like that doesn't make a lot of sense.
Right?
I don't know.
And the other thing that really bothered me was I went door to door in Sylvan Park and I questioned people and I asked them, did the police ever come here and talk to you? Did the police ever come here and talk to you? And I showed pictures of the garage. And I'm like, do you recognize this? And a couple people were like, oh, that looks familiar, but I'm not sure where I know it from. It was right across the street. And they had no idea. They had never heard of the story. The police never went to their homes. And I am talking about people that lived across the street from this house.
Oh, goodness.
No one was ever questioned in that neighborhood. And now the garage is gone. And there's some new building sitting over top of where the garage was. The house has been sold. So they have no ties to that anymore. Okay. But I don't understand it. That
doesn't mean that if they don't have a strong enough lead and probable cause that they can't go back and do things around those grounds and things like that. Like so that could happen eventually. Were you about to say something?
No, you said it.
Oh, was that it? Sorry.
Yeah, I agree. I just don't understand the connection of why we keep our mouth quiet. Because it's not like they're going to go to jail and their son isn't going to go to jail.
Right.
Just try to be helpful, and that's not happening. And I can't shake the feeling of, is this bigger than Nico? And, you've got all of these
could be why people are quiet. I mean, people are quiet for all kinds of reasons.
Did they OD accidentally or accidentally on purpose? Because I'm in your corner and I'll help you out. If you want to help me, I'll help you. You know what I mean? I would support you, but that's not what I'm getting. And I don't understand it because I was not brought up that way.
Yeah.
I wasn't.
No, same. Yeah, I don't know. I do know that, again, I feel much more hopeful, I think, than even just 3 years ago.
I do as well. I'm waiting for that day, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, people don't understand it. People that don't go through it will never understand it. And you know, I do want to open up the door a little bit, as long as we're here with the current situation, um with the whole Nancy Guthrie thing.
Mm-hmm.
I I've been so mad about that.
I saw your post. Please and tell. Yeah, go on and tell.
I I just I just I feel for that family. I do, because I've lived it for 14 years. And it is a horrific, horrible place to be. The the not sleeping, and the not eating, and the throwing up, and the diarrhea, and your
Mm-hmm.
head just spins out of control because you have no idea what's going on and you can't control any of it.
Yeah.
And so I feel for that family. But with the media, the way that this has been, it's like a war, like World War III. Like
Yeah.
there have been missing people for decades and decades, that it's like, this is a new thing, missing people. No, this is not. This is an epidemic.
Yeah.
And I feel like if you can provide all of these resources to this family, spread
Right.
some of it out, spread
Sure.
some of the wealth to some of the
Well,
others,
and at the end of the
because
day, too, we know that the media is a business, and we can look at it like, oh, they're concentrating all their time on her. We can also look at it like, oh, they're just fully using that as a way to get their clicks and likes and money too. Like it is gross, and I can only imagine how that can make someone in your position
and
feel.
I felt like, I'm always the outspoken one, no matter where I am, because I'm just not afraid to say how I feel. um I'm just, I just put it out there, and I never
Mhm.
purposely mean to hurt anyone's feelings. My mother used to call it being painfully honest. You're just painfully honest, Monica. I just, I have to get it off my chest. And for days I kept my mouth shut, but I would get on
Mhm.
social media, and that's all you would see. It's every single
I'm
post I
sure.
saw.
Yeah.
And I was just like, the anger was just building in me, like I was choking. And so then I started contacting people that I know that have missing kids. And I'm like, how do you feel about this for real?
Yeah.
Like, how do you really feel deep down inside it? And it's like, I don't know, people didn't know if they dared to say. I said, just tell me, be honest with me. I
Yeah.
want to know, because I'm going to tell you how I feel. I'm sick of it. I'm sick of hearing
Mhm.
about it. And my
Mhm.
husband was even like, wow, oh my God, what? What did you say? How could you say that?
It's
Well,
fair. I mean, I think it's an
be,
honest take, and it makes
because
sense.
it's like, and Gabby Petito's dad even said it. He's like, all of these other people need to be looked for, and that's on all
Yeah.
of you out there. Like,
Yeah.
and he knew it because his daughter got all that attention.
Yeah.
I mean, we know who the ones are that get looked for. It's,
Mhm.
but I'm
Yeah.
gonna I'm gonna stand up for all of those that don't.
Yeah.
And we're tired of it. And it's like, this is a time, I think, and I hate to use someone else's misfortune as a stepping stone like that, but it is true. It's like, now it has been brought to the national level
Yeah.
with Mrs. Guthrie. I mean, Savannah Guthrie's in everybody's home in the morning time. You know what I mean? And it's like, this has become real for so many people that had no idea
Yeah.
what's going on, and even Savannah herself. Like, this is an eye opener. Like, hello, there's millions of us out
There's real
here.
world out there that can be really yucky. Yeah.
Yes, yes. It's
Yeah.
not always pretty, and it's a terrible thing. And I hope that people just start paying attention.
Well, I think a perfect way to round this out is exactly what you just touched on. And I probably go every maybe 3 to 4 shows before I reference the Q Center. And so I know that this is an organization very close to your heart. I know that you are close to Monica Kaysen.
Yes.
And as you know, it's based out of Wilmington, where we live. I tell everybody at every turn, because they can't you can't talk about them enough. They do so much good. And so they are, again, a local to Wilmington organization, but they work nationally. And Q, it's CUE, it's Community United Effort. And so they cover missing cases. They have teams of people who are ex-law enforcement, FBI, like people who are able, like searchers, hunters, anything. If you have equine services, if you have four-wheelers, if you have tracking dogs, like if you have none of that, but you just have the willingness to have the heart and dedication to it, like people come together in a way, and it's a wonderful group of volunteers who are also knowledgeable. And I say that because they're not going to trample on if they are told to stay away from an area, or nope, this isn't the time for civilian volunteers. They don't do it. She works really well with local law enforcement. She has been in, multiple, I've seen her so many press conferences and that kind of thing, because they also respect her work and the team's work. And they've done so many great things. And I don't even know, you may know, I don't know their percentage rate of, they kind of take cases that have often, I think, fallen between the cracks. And they'll take like something new as well. Obviously, if it's an urgent new missing, and send out their confidential emails to their team to know exactly we need these services at this place at this time. But outside of that, in terms, they also do cold cases. And so they really do. That's how I got into talking with Monica and learning about the center years ago, was looking into a cold case. And anyway, they do great work. And so to your point, I know Monica, I know you guys have been close for a long time, and they've highlighted Nico's case, obviously, and looked into that. And so it's local here. So it's, again, close to my heart in that way, but it goes right back around to your point of people who may not be the ones that people are always looking for, and how important it is, because it doesn't matter. Like everybody's
important
and finding, of course. And so, and you have, I can easily say, honored your son well, in that, and your family has fought so hard to figure this stuff out. And I really think that I think you're doing all the right things, and I think you've made all the right steps, and I think that you've really gotten somewhere. And it feels like the right people are in your corner at this point. So
I agree.
We'll definitely be thinking about you, but I can't thank you enough for coming on and taking your time. I'm so thankful anytime you get to talk about Nico and talk about you guys and your family, and, and your love for him, and your desire to figure this all out, and desire to put the bad guys away. I mean, at the end of the day. So listeners, yes, I'm gonna put you backstage for 1 second, and I'm gonna wrap it up here, and then we'll close it out with you soon, because it is getting pretty late. We're both on Eastern time. Right. All right, sis, hang on 1 second, and of course, anytime. All right, if I can, there we go. All right, do you have anything to wrap it up with?
Well, it sounds like over a decade of effort and hard work.
It'll be 15 years, and
getting there
in the fall.
And I mean, it sounds like Franklin PD is doing right. It's
TBI.
Okay.
Remember, because then TBI came in, so that's
Gotcha.
that Nathan Neese that we were talking about. Okay. He's lead, and so I'm just thankful that he's providing, like, you know, the comfort and the all the good things. But I think he's actually really proactive with this case. But thank you guys for listening. This night shift has turned into a night shift, because my goodness, if we did not get started on time, that's kind of maybe that should be the merch we make. Something about just always running a little bit behind, but that's okay. That's okay. But anyway, hey, we love you guys, and we appreciate it every week. We appreciate you tuning in. Do you want to tell these people good night?
Yeah. Good night, everybody.
All right. Hey, thanks, guys. We love you. We'll see you next week. And until next week, until next Tuesday, right? We'll see you on next Tuesday. Love y'all. Good night, guys.